Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I'm delighted to invite Cem Ozenc, Group Vice President at Novo Nordisk, who has spent the last 20 years at Novo Nordisk, an organization which is behind probably the brands that you know called Ozempic and Wegovy. Jem has lived in 6 different countries, each with completely different rules about authority, about trust, and what makes somebody worth following. It is such a delight, Jem, to welcome you to this. I love that you like to keep asking uncomfortable questions, and probably I will be during the course of this interview ask you some. How are you today?
Thank you very much, and thanks for having me. I'm doing very well.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time. So, Jem, my first question to you is: when I invited you to speak on this particular podcast, what was the thought that went through your mind?
Well, I was at first probably a bit scared, Shivangi. I don't see myself as an expert in AI. Obviously, I have some experience on leadership, but I guess that's the crux of this because unless you are full time working on AI on the bleeding edge, it's impossible to be on top of this. And it's such a big change agent right now in our lives. And it impacts people, work, our environment, how we think every day. So it kind of humbles you. I think that's what I thought. And when it comes to humility, probably I can talk a little bit. And that's my leadership journey as well. So looking forward to digging deeper.
That's wonderful. And thanks for naming that, right? I think scared and being unsure and uncertain is a very shared, I think, feeling and experience that most of us have with AI. But some of us would find it very difficult to name it like that, right? Because there is a thought probably that as leaders we should have this sorted. We should actually know where we are going, what we are doing, etc. Before jumping into this, particular change, I am curious to understand from you. You've led across multiple countries and multiple cultures, right? I'm wondering from your end, what has remained the same when you think that there is change and disruption, and what makes this particular, probably transformational change that we are going through as leaders and organizations are going through and people in organizations are going through, what is different about this particular change wave?
Well, it's a very good question. I do see leadership as maybe as simple as driving change, moving from A to B. I mean, that's why we all lead, um, and maybe personally, I've seen this really getting a little different than before at during COVID time, while we were all at home. Really, we started doing video conferences and Teams meetings and coffee chats and so on. It made me really rethink about why are we doing all this and how we can really drive the change. And I think COVID accelerated most of the mega trends right now we are seeing across industries and technology. Personally, I'm always interested to see um, how important it is for our lives, both sometimes good and sometimes you can also use it badly. There's always this both sides of the coin. But I think with AI, this is, at least in my lifetime, it's the first time I'm seeing this level of massive change across every part of our lives, from cooking to parenting. How do we engage with our friends, and everything, basically everything that we do daily is changing with AI. And I'm leading some of the AI transformation at Novo Nordisk, and it really humbles you when you are trying to really work through that, because when you start working on something and in 4 weeks you notice that you're already outdated. So sometimes it's 2 weeks you're outdated. So it requires a very different lens, and looking at the environment you need to look at. So I think the common theme across those countries and cultural journeys was more about, okay, what do I need to unlearn as a leader? What questions do I need to ask to become more curious? Because every time I feel that when you move to a new country with a new culture, with a new goal, even though you have a good leadership toolkit, you need to start from scratch, which is why I also like it, because you also need to have this beginner mindset, and learning is your key strength. You will not be the smartest, you will not be the most knowledgeable when you go to a country with a different system, a culture, and language. But what you can do better probably from everyone is to aiming to be the best learner. And I think it also applies to this world of AI, because nobody will figure this out. I think we will all try to really ask the right questions and try to figure out how we can work with it. And I don't think leaders will have the answers. Not one single person will have the answers. So it's really important for us as a leader to bring the organization together and make that collective brainstorming. What do they see? What do they notice? How can we use this? And I can give some specific examples I've seen in the last 4 months here in my new role.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more about that, right? I mean, as you know, I have worked for Novo Nordisk in the past, and it's always been a very purpose-driven organization and also a very people-driven organization. I think some of the processes that have existed in Novo Nordisk probably for a few decades, like having an ombudsman, a facilitator who will go and speak to various, people who are being led in different parts of the world, etc. These are some processes I only realized after leaving Novo Nordisk are still not available in many organizations. But at the same time, Novo Nordisk has also gone through tremendous change, right? It has also let go of people. I think some of the things that we have seen in Novo Nordisk did not exist in Novo Nordisk, at least definitely not the Novo Nordisk that I know from like maybe a decade back, right? So how is this, being in a purpose driven, people driven organization, but at the same time having all of these commercial challenges, mainly I'm thinking driven because of AI, because what AI is able to do versus what human beings can possibly achieve. You have agents that never tire, they are never moody, they're able to just achieve so much. How does an organization like Novo Nordisk, and maybe you can speak about your experience in your own team, how are you handling those kind of commercial pressures?
Maybe just let's step out. I think you touched a point about AI, especially you heard about GLP-1s, you heard about those brands that are being used in diabetes and obesity. And for the first time, maybe in the history of pharma, we have seen patients and sometimes consumers, they don't want to also be seen as a patient, taking the control of their own health. And AI played an important role on that. I think when I look into the future, I can see healthcare will become really democratized, very accessible. I'm sure you are using your own agent to ask about your health, what you should eat, how you should exercise, what kind of medicines you need to be aware of, and so on. Um, I think we are more and more getting our information from AI than maybe our clinicians or pharmacists. And that is changing very quickly. And probably fair to say this started with GLP-1s being so popular, really coming on the back of a hype. And right now, I think Novo Nordisk is on the cusp of this change together with a few other companies. We are really trying to understand where this is leading to. Because in the past, pharma operated, as you know, through clinical data. Then we go to doctors, and then we talk to them, and then we educate them. We go to conferences like I am now, and then we wait doctors to educate and inform patients. And that is completely inverted. Now patients are getting the information, going to doctor, maybe if they are going at all, or they are getting it delivered to their home, even sometimes medicine, depending on where you live. So that really changed the whole system in pharma, and I think um, this is a permanent shift. It's not a transitional shift that we are seeing. And you may say, well, obesity is impacting so many people. Weight is a big problem for almost everyone. Well, we are seeing that also across other industries. The reason I'm explaining this to you as a background is, I mean, this is so real right now for us that it is changing the industry, and we need to think differently, right? Patients already make their mind about what treatment they use, what brand they want before they even go to doctors through their agents. So we need to be present upstream, educating patients in the right way, accurately, and also in a language that is more compelling and simple than we talk to doctors. So that I'm in the middle of that, and I'm seeing that every day. But again, coming back to maybe the leadership part, this all happened in maybe a year. Um, and you heard about large language models. That's the foundational piece of AI. And for example, we have a team right now that is really trying to understand their algorithms so that we can actually make right information in the right place, in the right channel, in the right time available. And as I said, once we figure how they work, they change. So,
Yeah,
what
yes.
do you tell your team? How do you really? And then we have a senior management that wants quicker results. Um, it's very hard because it's not like you can influence this so fast. You really need to build an organic way. This is a real challenge for us right now at Novo Nordisk, and we work with across the team, across the enterprise. So I mean, my approach to this is again being a student of what's happening, and I guess always been my toolbox. But maybe in the last 5, 10 years, as I grew up to be a bit more mature leader, not having answers, but having the best questions. I mean, how do I ask the right questions to get the best out of that team in the environment that is so uncertain, that is changing so fast, and we can't even comprehend with our brains. I mean, IQ is increasing almost every year, 10 to 15% on AI. There, if I'm not mistaken, they're almost 160. I mean, how many of us are 160 IQ, right? How do we deal with that? And it's going to be only faster. So I hope I'm able to explain to you like the environment that we operate, and then of course it challenges us as leaders.
Yeah, I mean, you're painting a very real and a very challenging picture. I'm wondering though, when people are in the same boat as you, Jem, what would your, I mean, maybe advice is a big word, right? But I think what could your suggestion or recommendation be for them in terms of conversations, right? Because I mean, we also know, yes, everything is changing at the same time. The brain, our brain as humans, we want certainty, we want to predictability, we want leaders that we can look up to, we want stability, we want security. All of those needs of the brain have not gone away, right? Because we do have a very social brain. And then everywhere there is the churn, right? But how do you buffer this for your own team when you work with that? You said, yes, you're learning and you're probably making your learning more public. But when there are teams of people who are, let's say, uncertain about their own future, what is the conversation you're leading with them, Jen?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, I mean, I don't know what will happen. Um, as a leader, I know we all want someone to tell us it's going to be okay, and we have a good grip on things. Um, that sometimes works, but I think in this environment, at least the way I see it, is that I tell what I don't know, and how I also sometimes feel scared, like I told you. I think that's the most important piece if you want to really build that authentic relationship, and people to have see you as a credible, trusted person, right? So I can't lie to them. If I tell them I know what I'm doing with AI, that will be a lie. I'm constantly learning. I think it all starts with this. And again, I think as a company, on the back of this mega trend with GLP-1s, we've seen most of the things we thought we knew were wrong. At least in Novo, we have that example. Now there is AI. And I can tell you in the next 1 year, probably things will happen that we haven't planned. And we have a direction, we have a North Star where we like to go as a company or how we like to operate. But I always tell people I don't know what will happen next week. But we do have plans where how to get there. So it starts with that vulnerability in a way, right? And then open up the conversation. I mean, what's worrying us, what's frustrating us. I can probably help with some of it, how we deal with it, how we feel about it, but I can't really help with what will happen with AI. And it is just impossible. And maybe stepping back a little bit, and maybe also reversing this. You're right. It's our wiring makes us really scared when we feel there is danger. It comes from the times we were out there as tribes and hunting. If you're not feeling safe, your body basically puts those hormones to make you feel this way. But there's also a flip side to it, the possibilities. And um, we are. I don't think there was any more exciting time to be at pharma working with GLP-1. Now patients are really taking their life and health into their own control. Most of the things we discussed in the past as strains or restraints in pharma, they are changing. So what do we do with it? I mean, if you are truly purpose driven and we want to reach billions of people and help them live healthier lives, I mean, probably that's going to be possible. And maybe that's the part I feel I could do better, that instead of just focusing on what's not certain, maybe let's
Mm,
talk about what's possible, and what we can do about it.
mm,
Bring that agency back to people and make them feel that they're excited about the future, they're excited about the possibilities, and they can have an impact.
yeah.
And I think that's at least how I feel when I feel that this is so crazy. But I go back, why am I here? What can I do? What's my sphere of control? And the impact that I can see in this evolving times is super different than before, 10 years, 20 years ago.
Yeah, I was reading a bit of what you have posted about your leadership, the fact that you took your leadership team to Rishikesh, the
Yes,
uncomfortable questions that you were asking because of, COVID and how life changed during COVID and how we have reconnected. I also heard, by the way, that Novo Nordisk now has asked everybody to go back to work 100%. Is that right? So no
that's
more
true.
remote work for people at Novo Nordisk, which is
Yes,
also,
yes, that's true. It's still we have teams and individuals that can, of course, use it. But
hmm.
that was Mike's, our new CEO's, maybe call to action, and that's the current policy right now.
And how have people in the organization reacted to that?
Um, I think there were mixed. I mean, I'm in Denmark right now, right? I mean, depends which culture where you are and when you hear this.
Yes, yes,
I
yes.
think in Denmark that was probably a question of if we are being trusted, empowered, etc. And I do fully recognize that, and I also very much trust Mike's judgment. But again, me as a leader, I was trying to reinstate that this doesn't change anything for us. As long as we agree, we can, of course, look at catering for certain needs, but there's no such thing as everyone can work from anywhere. But that doesn't mean you will be at the office all the time. So let's be smart. Let's be pragmatic. You have caring duties, you have parenting duties, and so on. And in Denmark, services are limited, so parents needs to leave early and go to daycare and so on. So I do believe that our team has taken it on board. And I must say, people are coming to office because it's just so fun to be office these days because there's so much happening. At least for my unit, I can tell it's a new unit coming, bringing consumers, tech, digital health, all that startup culture. I think we have probably went through it with a very positive traction.
Okay, that's great to hear. I always ask this question, what is something you understand intellectually about AI and leadership? Again, remaining in that same zone, but not to the extent that you can actually action it. Something that is, I give an example always about crypto. Every time I read about it, I sort of get it, and I'm like, okay, I think I got it. And then if somebody would ask me, okay, can you explain? And they have to ask me one question below, and I'm like, okay, I don't actually get it. So, but I'm wondering, is there something like that with leadership in this age of AI that you understand cognitively, intellectually, but you can't actually implement or do anything about it?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of coders in my team. They do coding, and now there's this thing called vibe coding.
Yes.
I get it, but I probably won't be able to do it. I guess that's something that will change the way we build things. Everybody can build anything, and that will raise the bar. But then you really need to be great at, because everybody will be doing it. You really need to be really, really good at doing that in order to really reach a threshold. I think that's something probably can be learned, but I haven't really spent time on it. I don't see myself coding in the future, but there are a lot of other things. I think it's matter of. I also think that AI will not just come to you. You will need to really spend time. I mean, we were having a chat last week in our leadership team, and now we made a collaboration with OpenAI. You may have seen it, Novo Nordisk and OpenAI, and our company is going through this training, different models and learning structure. That's good, but I mean, as if with anything, if you like to learn something, you need to spend time on it, practice, and everyone can do different things with AI. So I said, best way to do it is probably spending 20 minutes every day. Do whatever you're doing at work, but try to do it with AI and learn. I personally started using it by just let me try this, and then I got stuck, and I really enjoy today. I can't even do anymore without it. And then we are trying to help our teams building agents for certain tasks. Right now, for example, that would be your alley, down your alley. In HR, our team, my HR partner came up with this wonderful idea. How do we really use cloud for performance management? You do performance management quarterly or twice a year. You forget all the things that happen in March, in June. You always have the recency bias. It's always hard to put that into a positive spin and then think about how do I make a constructive feedback, but it's at the same time, how do I give my message? And all those challenges. So she came up with this idea that we built an agent, and then we put, say, I'm just meeting with you, and I have this idea about what you're saying, and I put it on the chat. I constantly put ad hoc comments about our conversation, your work, and over time it turns into a. And I always say, do me a Adam Grant persona. I like him a lot, and Adam Grant persona, my persona, and let's articulate this feedback much more eloquently, and then make that a piece to be shared later, or maybe in a one-to-one. Over time, this agent will learn your team members, and then you will almost have a very clear history, memory of all the small things. Doesn't necessarily need to be big, but all the small things that actually matter to give as a good feedback, and then you will have a chance to articulate that. Maybe if you are not a native English speaker, much better. Of course, using your own common sense, and then turn that into a really structured performance measurement. So what does that do is that it democratizes a tool like this, right? Also elevate people to almost leveling the field for better performance management for everyone. I'm sure some will do better than others, but I think that was a really good practical example, right?
So one last question for you, Jim. This has been a very insightful conversation. Is there a counterintuitive insight that you would be able to share with our listeners and viewers today?
I think it's about vulnerability around not having the answers of what's going to happen to us with the acceleration of AI.
And what's going to help with that vulnerability?
Openness and collective thinking, collective really investigation of how we can use it best for ourselves.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much for your time today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.